Hey, this is Asher here from Revenue Journey. Now in this short video, I'm going to talk a little bit about what many owners, founders, or sales leaders or growth leaders get wrong about B2B Cold Outbound and why Clay is actually a great tool to help to streamline that process. And take note, today what we're just going to talk about is pure cold outbound. We're not talking about warm outbound where you are trying to find leads from your existing contacts or leads from your existing network. Or referrals. So none of that, just pure cold outbound. Now, prior to starting Revenue Journey, I've been a B2B sales executive for multiple SaaS and software companies for the past almost 5 years. So I'm very clear with this process and I've been through this process multiple times. Now, a lot of times it just starts from maybe the manager, the sales leader say, hey, go and hunt for more prospects. So what they typically think it is that you got to pick up the phone and start calling, got to start to cold email a bunch of people, go for multiple events, give out name cards and collect multiple name cards, or just start to message people on LinkedIn and show me the results in 2 weeks. I want to see your pipeline grow. I want to see that now you have a lot of opportunities. So that's the typical things that happen, right? But actually a lot of things must happen before this process. This is the execution process, but we got to talk about a preparation process and where Clay comes in during that period. So let's start from the beginning again, where we have the typical go and hunt for more prospects. Now, this is where a lot of times we got to take a step back, right? A sales rep in your team, they first got to understand a few things. They got to understand what's the ICP. Hey, what's the industry that we typically go after? What's the headcount of the companies? What are the typical titles we work with? And what are the typical trigger points that compel them to want to take a look at our service or product? Now, if you're a sales leader, you're an owner, founder, you may already be very clear with this sort of ICP because that's your life day to day, right? You understand it. But you need to help them understand what's the ICP. And at the same time, help them understand what's your value proposition. What is so unique about what you're offering that someone should buy from you? And why will you help them in their business? What are the sort of business challenges that you can solve for? And at how fast can you solve it for them? And what's the metric you use to measure? So once you understand these two things, this is where you go into a slightly technical process where you start to build what we call an account list or a lead list. And why you got to do that is if you really look at what most salespeople are doing, 100% of them, they probably spend around 50 to 80% of their time actually doing what we call manual or admin work, where they are building a lead list, trying to find contact information to reach out to those people, regardless if it's through cold calls or through cold emailing. And this really takes up a lot of time. You don't want your salespeople who are trained to talk to prospects, who are trained to close, or who are trained to think strategically and write copywriting or something like that. You don't want them to be doing all this manual work. So let's take a look at that manual or admin process that we talk about and see how Clay, in this case, can actually help to streamline that process. So firstly, once we know these two things, the ICP and the value proposition, we got to map the TAM or the total addressable market. Ask ourselves, okay, for the target audience that we are trying to look for, where can they be found? How can we target them? And we got to create an initial targeted account list based on those data, like industry, company size, country. You can get this sort of initial account list from many different databases out there or from any sort of data provider. Could be Apollo, could be maybe a particular database out there, could be whatever that may be. You got to start with the accounts first. Once you have the accounts, a lot of times, a lot of these data providers may not have the best filters. They may say things like, okay, this is in the software and development industry. But are they really? A lot of times, companies can categorize themselves in all sorts of different ways, and you really got to enrich it and verify if they are what they are actually the accounts that you want to target. So we got to enrich the list, right? We got to ask ourselves, are they using specific technologies? Is there any information we can find out from their website that indicates that they are a good fit? And a lot of time, this is done manually by a lot of sales reps or a lot of different teams. Once you have that targeted account list, that is then you go into the contact information. You try to find the decision makers. You try to find either the head of marketing, head of IT within those companies. Look for their information such as phone number, email address, and you verify those information to reduce sort of bounce rate. Because again, if you don't verify, let's say email addresses, you send out the email too many times, it will bounce and that can actually affect your email deliverability. So we don't want that. And lastly, use the data points that you have gathered, regardless if it's from their website or from someone who has posted something on LinkedIn. You want to use those data points to be relevant, either in your cold outreach, let's say from cold call or cold email. So let's take a look at how that is done in Clay, right? Now within Clay, what I have done over here is that Clay is essentially a go-to-market tool where you can build all of these different lists through different integrations. Now, I'm not going to go into detail how it actually works, but I'm just going to show you one of the use case over here. So in this case, let's say I'm a B2B company and I want to work with companies who are selling to e-commerce companies. So again, trying to provide them, let's say, a lead generation service, and I say, hey, I can get you e-commerce companies to talk to you. So I'll do a general search where I say that, okay, find me companies who are 11 to, let's say, 500 employees in terms of headcount, and they have descriptions like e-commerce, Shopify, D2C, things like that. Now, a lot of times, what will happen is that you'll get a fairly large list. So over here, I've got a list that is 15,000 and another list that is 24,000. So that's a lot of companies. What I want to do now is just to get a little bit more specific, because I don't want my sales rep to be going through this one by one, looking at the description and say, okay, are they a good fit? So I'll use the different integrations within Clay to do this, and I'll just show a quick example. So let's say I have a company. First things first, I want to determine if they are a B2B company or a B2C company. Now, if someone has Shopify within their LinkedIn description, it could just mean that they are an e-commerce company themselves, or they could be doing something that is totally different that could be selling to end consumers, and I don't want that. So I may actually connect through integration to OpenAI, and I tell OpenAI, hey, visit the company page, visit the domain, and tell me if it's a B2B business or a B2C business. So again, I just get it to return me either B2C or B2B. So just from this simple step over here, this what we call integration to OpenAI, again, I can do a mass scraping of all the different websites and get my information. So you can see B2C, B2B, things like that. And next, I want to also determine, wait, who is their target industry, right? Do they just sell to e-commerce or do they sell to different companies as well? So I can also say, again, go into the domain, find out who are the customers they work with. And from there, we've got the target industry. So let's say they target retail, logistics, supply chain, toy publishing, no e-commerce there. But this, for example, yeah, there's e-commerce, even though it's Amazon. And the third step is just use some sort of formulas to extract that if there is e-commerce in here, I want to extract it. So just from a list of, in this case, 50 different companies, I just really have only 6 companies that align with what I call my ideal customer profile. And I can do this for the rest of these different companies at scale using AI. And I can move towards this part where I get the contact information and try to get relevant data points, regardless of the technologies that they use. I could use, let's say, build with, for example, which is also a integration that they have. So if I type with build with, yeah, I can find their technology stack as well. So this is just a quick overview of why Clay is really important when it comes to the cold outbound strategy and how it can help you be more relevant and targeted in your outreach. Now, if you are interested to see how this works on the deeper level, feel free to contact me, Revenue Journey. So can go into the website revenue-journey.com. That's where I have my websites, and I have a lot of these other videos where I talk about strategies for cold outbound and how we can use Clay to help with that. Yeah, that's all from me. Take care.